Okay, so get this right. We're going deep into AI today,
Mm-hmm.
but like focusing on some seriously weird stuff happening. Like imagine, right, an AI
Yeah.
that's supposed to like, understand and talk back to you in English,
Right.
just randomly throws in words from other languages like Chinese or Persian or,
Uh-huh.
anything. It's like it's having this like secret side conversation in code
Yeah.
right in the middle of like trying to solve a problem. Crazy, right?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a bit of a head scratcher. We're seeing this mostly with
Yeah.
these advanced AI models, the ones that are like, designed for really complex reasoning.
Right.
Like a good example is OpenAI's O1 model.
Oh, yeah. I read about that.
Users are reporting that it just like switches languages mid-thought, even when
Yes.
like the initial prompt was totally in English.
Yeah, I read about that. It was like someone asked O1 how many R's are in the word strawberry, and the final answer, like, it gave it in English,
Yeah.
but somewhere in the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's like, use Chinese. It's like it was thinking out loud in another language.
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on? Why is this happening? It's like, time to put on our detective hats, right?
Exactly.
And like really examine the different theories.
Yeah, for sure. So the first clue we have kind of points to the data that these AI models are trained on, right? So we're talking about massive data sets, huge amounts of text, and like a good chunk of that text is actually in Chinese. So it's possible, right,
Yeah.
that all this Chinese text is kind of influencing O1's internal processes, like how it thinks.
So it's like if you spent like all day, every day reading cookbooks, right? You might start thinking in like teaspoons and cups.
Exactly.
And when you're talking about something totally different.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And that's basically the idea here. Experts like Clement Delong, the CEO of Hugging Face, and Ted Xiao, who's a researcher at Google DeepMind, have both kind of pointed out the just massive volume of Chinese text that's in these training data sets.
Yeah.
And they've even suggested that like maybe the use of third-party data labeling services in China might be a factor.
Data labeling. What's that all about?
So think of it like tagging information for the AI to understand, right?
Right.
Imagine you're teaching an AI to like recognize objects in pictures. You would label each image with like tags like person, car, tree,
Yeah.
That's data labeling.
Okay.
And in this case, right, maybe some of that labeling is actually happening in Chinese.
Oh, okay.
And that could be like influencing how the AI processes information.
So even something as like technical as data labeling could introduce a bias.
Yeah, potentially.
That's interesting. But wait, I thought O1 wasn't only switching to Chinese. Like I thought there were other languages popping up too. So doesn't that like maybe suggest
good point.
that something else is going on?
You're right to be skeptical. That brings us to a kind of a different theory.
Yeah.
Hallucination.
Hold on. Hallucination. Is the AI like seeing things?
No, not literally.
Okay.
Hallucination in AI means it's like generating these outputs that aren't actually based on the input that it received. It's as if it's just throwing out like random words, regardless of the language.
So like it's flipping through a mental dictionary and just grabbing like whatever word it lands on, even if it's in another language.
Exactly.
But if it's not,
Yeah.
like pulling these words from the training data,
Right.
how's it even choosing these words?
That is the million-dollar question. And it actually highlights a really good point that was made by Matthew Gusdell, who is an AI researcher. He said that, AI doesn't actually understand language like we do.
Right.
It just sees it all as data, like just a bunch of symbols to manipulate.
Okay, so maybe it's not like intentionally thinking in different languages.
Right.
It's just kind of playing with the data it has access to. But there's another piece of this puzzle, right? Something about how the AI breaks down language itself
You got it.
into like smaller chunks.
Exactly. Let's talk about tokens.
Okay.
Think of tokens as like the building blocks of language for an AI model.
Okay.
It's like Lego bricks that it uses to like construct words and sentences.
So the way the AI like chunks up language could actually influence how it thinks.
Precisely.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And different methods of this tokenization can actually introduce like their own little quirks, right?
Right.
For example, like some languages don't use spaces between words.
Oh, right.
So like an AI that's trained on a model that expects spaces might get confused.
It's like how some people prefer to like do math in their native language.
Yeah.
Because it just feels more natural.
Totally.
Well, wait, is there someone who connects like this tokenization thing to the whole language switching?
Yeah, so Tijin Wang,
Okay.
who's a software engineer at Hugging Face, he has this theory that the AI might be drawing on associations that it formed during training.
Okay.
So, like, maybe it finds certain languages more efficient for certain tasks, right?
Right.
Based on, like, these learned connections.
Okay, so we've got, like, three pretty intriguing possibilities, right?
Yeah.
Bias from the training data,
Mm-hmm.
the AI hallucinating and just spitting out random words,
Mm-hmm.
and the way language itself is broken down into these tokens. But, like, where does this leave us? Do we actually know
That's the fact.
why this is happening?
Unfortunately, no. I mean, these AI models are incredibly complex, right?
Yeah.
And Lucas Soldani, who's a researcher at the Allen Institute for AI, he points out that
Okay.
without more transparency from companies like, OpenAI,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to say for sure what's causing these language switches.
So it's like we're seeing the answer, right?
Yeah,
But we have no idea how the AI got there.
exactly.
It's a real mystery. So,
Yeah.
like, what happens next?
Yeah.
Or where do we go from here?
Well, I think the now that we've like laid out all the possible explanations, right, for
Right.
why these AI models are switching languages,
Yeah.
the bigger question is like, what does this tell us
Yeah.
about how AI thinks, right? Compared to like us humans.
That's a great question. Like, we humans, we rely so much on language, right?
Exactly.
For all of our, like, thinking processes.
Yeah.
So is AI, like, showing us that there's another way to
Yeah.
process information, like maybe one that doesn't depend on language in the same way?
It's a really interesting idea, right? I mean, we tend to view AI through a very human lens.
Right.
Like, we assume it processes information like we do.
Right.
But maybe, just maybe, it's operating on, like, totally different principles that
Yeah.
we don't fully grasp yet.
Imagine if we could, like, crack the code of these AI languages, right?
Yeah.
It would be like having, like, a Rosetta Stone for artificial intelligence.
Oh, totally.
What kind of, like, doors could that open?
I mean, the possibilities are kind of mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
If we could actually understand how AI manipulates language, like, for real,
Yeah.
it could revolutionize fields like machine translation, natural language processing, maybe even like creative writing.
Think about it. An AI that could write, like, a novel
Yeah.
simultaneously in multiple languages,
Ah.
blending all these different cultural viewpoints seamlessly.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right?
Yeah.
But the potential is definitely there. But of course, like with any
Yeah.
powerful technology, we got to consider
Yeah.
the potential downsides too.
You mean like the whole AI taking over the world scenario?
Well, yeah, that's always a popular one. But it's
Okay.
not necessarily about taking over, right? It's
Yeah.
more about like the issues of bias and control. Like, if we don't understand how these AI systems are working for real,
Yeah.
how can we make sure that they're not like perpetuating harmful stereotypes or being used for like unethical purposes?
That's a sobering thought. It's like giving someone a powerful tool, right?
Exactly.
Without, like, any instructions or safety guidelines.
Yeah.
They could achieve amazing things,
Mhm.
but also, like, cause a lot of damage.
Exactly, which is why like transparency is so crucial in AI development, right? We need to be able to like look under the hood
Yeah.
and understand how these models are making decisions,
Right.
especially as they become like more and more integrated into our
Okay.
daily lives.
It's almost like we need, like, a social contract with AI.
Yeah, I like that.
Right. Like, clear guidelines, ethical frameworks
Yeah.
to make sure that this technology is used responsibly, right?
Yeah,
And, like, benefits everyone.
absolutely. And that requires like collaboration between like the people who develop the AI, the researchers who study it, the
Yeah.
policymakers who regulate it, and like the public who actually uses it, right?
Yeah.
Like we need to have open and honest discussions. Yeah.
About the potential benefits and risks.
It's a huge responsibility,
Yeah.
but also like an incredible opportunity.
For sure.
We're at the very beginning of a like technological revolution, right?
Totally.
And we have the chance to actually shape its development
Yeah.
in a way that leads to like a positive future.
Couldn't agree more.
You know what though? I think I need a little break from all this like mind-bending AI talk.
I hear you. It's a lot to
Let's-
process.
Let's like take a step back
Okay.
and look at some like real world examples
Yeah.
of how AI is already being used with multiple languages.
Okay.
I've got some pretty interesting stories lined up.
I'm all ears.
Okay, so we've been like really diving deep into all these theories about why AI models are switching languages, right?
Yeah.
It's like they're speaking in some kind of like secret code.
Mm.
But let's like step away from the theories for a bit
Okay.
and talk about how this whole like multilingual AI capability is actually showing up in the real world. Right, right. I mean, one area where it's having a huge impact is in machine translation.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like those instant translation features on your phone.
Yeah.
Or the real-time subtitles you see on like video calls and stuff.
Mm.
AI-powered translation tools have come a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
And the ability to understand and generate text in multiple languages.
Right.
That's like key to all that.
Yeah, I use those translation apps all the time.
Yeah.
But it's not just about translating words, is it? Like,
No, you're right.
there's all those like cultural nuances to consider too.
Absolutely. And that's where AI is getting really, really sophisticated.
Oh, wow.
It's being used to like develop tools that not only translate text,
Mm-hmm.
but also adapt it to like the cultural context of the audience.
So imagine like a company's trying to market their product
Right.
in different countries.
Right.
And AI could help them tailor their message,
Totally.
taking into account like local customs,
Yeah.
humor, all those like subtle differences.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It could even help like bridge cultural divides
Ah,
by identifying and explaining those differences in communication styles.
that's pretty cool. It's like AI could become this like universal language mediator,
Yeah. Yeah.
helping people from all over the world like understand each other better.
That's the goal.
But like with all this talk about AI and language,
Yeah.
what are some things we should like be paying attention to
Yeah.
as this technology keeps like advancing?
Well, I think one thing to keep in mind is just like the potential for bias.
Mm-hmm.
We talked
Mm.
earlier about how AI models are trained on data
Right.
and that data can contain, societal biases.
So if an AI is trained on text that includes like
Yeah.
gender or racial stereotypes, right,
Mm-hmm.
it might end up like repeating those biases in its output.
Exactly.
That-
That's a big concern for sure. And that's why it's so important to have like
Right.
diverse teams working on AI development, bringing like different backgrounds and perspectives to the table.
Yeah. Right. Right.
It's not just about the technology, but it's also about like the people who are creating it.
Right. A diverse team can help like spot and correct for those potential biases.
Exactly.
What else should we like be aware of?
Transparency is key.
Okay.
We need to be able to like understand how these AI models are making decisions,
Right.
especially as they get like more complex
Mhm.
and more integrated into our lives.
Right.
It's a bit like the trust but verify principle.
Yeah.
We need to be able to trust AI,
Right.
but we also need to have ways to verify that
Right.
it's working as intended.
It feels like we're like on the edge of a whole new world with all this AI stuff.
Yeah.
It's exciting, but also like a bit daunting, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a rapidly evolving landscape, right? Full
Yeah.
of possibilities and challenges.
Well, this has been like a truly fascinating deep dive
Yeah.
into the world of like multilingual AI.
Mhm.
We've gone from like the super technical details of how AI processes language
Right.
to the bigger questions,
Yeah.
right? About how it thinks
Uh-huh.
and the ethical considerations we all need to be aware of.
For sure.
So for our listeners out there, the like key takeaway here is to stay curious, right?
Yeah.
Stay informed and stay engaged. AI is here to stay.
That is.
And the more we understand about it,
Yeah.
the better equipped we'll all be to like navigate its impact on our lives.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.